Welcome to Provisional Recruiting, the podcast. We are a recruiting and staffing agency here in Spokane, Washington. We have 3 divisions. We have office, medical, and commercial. We are going to be interviewing Stephanie today. She is a recruiting assistant that has been with Provisional for about 3 weeks, and she'll be giving us a rundown a little bit on what she does, her background, and what's gotten her to where she is. So we will go from there, and hopefully this is the first episode of many. You can introduce yourself and then just kind of go from there.
Okay, I'm Stephanie, and currently I am the recruiting assistant at Provisional Recruiting, and I am the newest member of the staff there. I've been on for less than a month, so really just kind of starting to get into the groove of things and learn my way around the business and just kind of get a feel for things.
Perfect. So as far as that goes, what kind of got you into this position, or what were you doing before this?
So for most of my career, I've been in retail or service industry management. Mm-hmm. And my position at my last company got eliminated in April of 2021. Mm-hmm. So since about June of last year, I've been working from home. I've been doing freelance copywriting and graphic design for about 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, nice.
So I was just kind of doing that, and got to the point at the end of the year where I felt like I really needed to get out of the house.
Fair.
I was just spending really extended periods of time at home, and I was just like, I think I need to get a job outside. And so I actually applied for just a temporary position that Provisional had listed for one of its clients. And when Heidi, the recruiting manager, called me, she was like, I know you applied for this temporary position, but like we would really like to consider you for a position here at Provisional. Mm-hmm. And it just seemed like a really good fit. I honestly would have never thought to apply at a staffing agency, but I've literally I've been doing that for almost my entire career in some facet or another. And so, it was just, it was a great suggestion, and I felt like it was a really good fit. And,
That's awesome. I know Provisional is super welcoming. I mean, the first thing, they're so personable.
Yeah.
Like immediately you're just like, okay, I can get along with these people.
Totally. Yeah. It wasn't scary at all. It was just these are people that I could stand being around every day.
Which is crazy, especially coming from working from home so much and not working with people. That can definitely kind of alienate you from that.
Yeah.
And then especially a lot of people our age too are looking for more of that at home and not having more of an in-office type environment, which is super hard because I also like being around people. So if you can find a good balance of doing both, it's pretty awesome. So as far as like you were saying with service industry, a lot of those qualities and a lot of those talents that come from that really do well in recruiting, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of my background too. I also came from working at a brewery for a really long time.
Yeah, we share that in common, Eric.
That's what Eric told me too. Yeah. Eric is a recruiting manager over at Provisional. He works in the back. And so he's picked a great team as far as anytime people do come through those doors and they stick. It usually is for a good reason. Yeah. But yeah, kind of same story. I moved here and then Provisional offered me a job in their office just temporarily, and then it ended up staying. So we'll kind of touch bases on all of the different recruitments and things that you do on that side as well too.
Sure.
Because Provisional, basically what you're doing is you're selling people to clients. Yep. And that's kind of where that comes in as far as making sure whenever you're sending someone to one of the recruiter managers or recruiters, that you're sending someone that's kind of of value.
Yes.
And you've obviously found something in them that shines a little bit brighter than others.
Quality candidates.
Yes. Which are hard to come by. And I know everyone's feeling that pain, especially with the pandemic and all of that crazy stuff. But as far as you're not originally from Washington either, right?
I'm not originally from Spokane.
Okay. But are you from Washington?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, so originally I'm from Vancouver, Washington. I moved to Portland after I graduated high school.
Okay.
So I was there for most of my 20s and then briefly moved back to Vancouver for a couple years before we relocated up here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. And is there any particular reason why you guys came to Spokane?
Originally it was for a job opportunity for my husband that ended up falling through kind of quickly because of the pandemic. Sure. But we'd had our eye on Spokane for years as far as like lower cost of living, 4 distinct seasons. Like
it is nice.
We just really, really liked Spokane a lot. We came up here at the end of summer of 2019 to kind of scout out locations. We absolutely fell in love with South Hill, and that was it for us. We found a house and put in an offer, and we were moved in before Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's awesome. So. And then as far as when you guys did move, so it was pretty near like the beginning of the pandemic and everything?
It was right at the end of 2019.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So really thrown into it. Yeah. You got really acquainted with your new house.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then obviously your husband found something to go to. That's good. So, and then as far as kind of the position you were working when you moved here, was that different from doing the freelance and design and things like that?
Yeah, so it was kind of more in line with what I had been doing prior to moving to Spokane, which was visual merchandisinng in softline retail. So when I came up here, I started working for the Gap as their adult department merchandiser.
And then as far as that goes, does that just mean like you make things visually appealing to people? Like
so
when they
that basically, it starts with a planning process. You have to design floor plans for each new product set every month. So you are doing layouts of where all of your fixturing is going to go, how you want the product folded and arranged. When the product comes in, you're responsible for getting it out on the floor, making sure it looks nice, doing all of the visuals in the windows, doing all the marketing throughout the store, overhead displays, mannequins, things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it that I never really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Because I like to shop.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, I absolutely loved doing that. But I feel like as far as visual merchandising goes, like the peak of that was before I got into it. Like stores used to put together the most elaborate, crazy merchandising displays. And now it's like bare minimum.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, everything's kind of shifted, obviously. Post-pandemic, I won't say we're like totally in it anymore. Or I'd like to think we're not. But as far as kind of shifting and things like that, I mean, everyone's had to shift a lot of how they do business. And I know that's probably one of the qualifications that Provisional also let you know, that we're constantly changing. And even before the pandemic, we were changing all the time. But I mean, that's always good that you can always know how to shift through things. So that's kind of a quality that a lot of people look for in recruiting managers or assistants too. I mean, having an assistant recruiter is so helpful. Like someone to kind of comb through things before you're just like jumping in with someone.
I'm like the filter
that
everything goes through. Before.
And that's a very important part. So as far as that goes, now in your new position, obviously it's a little bit different from what you were doing, but kind of the same. So can you just kind of tell us what you look for for each department before you send them on?
So first I kind of look at what their experience has been like, the previous jobs that they've worked, and see if any of that aligns with current positions that we have open. The other thing I'm really looking for is transferable skills, because sometimes people will have these skills that pertain to a job and they don't necessarily have any directly relatable experience. But if you can look at a resume and kind of like understand what each job in their history entails, and you can kind of pick apart like, okay, well, this is a skill that would work for this position, and maybe they don't have any direct experience in that, but if they have the skill set, it's worth calling them and being like, I noticed that you applied for this or you were interested in this, but I also noticed that you have a background or a skill set in this specific area. Would you be interested in pursuing something a little different?
Yeah.
So I think it's really like you have to read between the lines a little bit as far as like sometimes people don't even know what exactly to put on their resume. And so I think a lot of it is having to interpret like maybe something that they didn't think of putting down that could be applicable.
Exactly. And I do agree with that too, as far as kind of seeing, because obviously where you come from, our backgrounds would not put us in recruiting manager, or we would ever think of those roles. And then someone offers it to you and you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense.
I'm like, oh, I've been hiring people, for 15 years. So.
And then are you guys experiencing, obviously there's tons of positions that are open and they're hard to fill. But are there any that there's a mass amount of and you guys are having the hardest time to fill?
I would definitely say MAs, medical assistants. Really big demand right now and not a lot of applicants.
Fair.
So,
and same with the admin positions. Do you guys have any higher demand for something, or that's more multiple applicants needed?
Definitely HR managers and directors. Again, another position that does require like certain certifications in addition to education. And so you'll see a lot of people applying to those jobs that have backgrounds in retail and service management, because a lot of those skills are transferable. When you're managing retail and food service, you're managing personnel files, you're doing onboarding paperwork, you're talking to people about their benefits that are available to them, you're doing the hiring and recruiting process. Unfortunately, because so many of those positions also require like further certification and bachelor's degrees and things like that, a lot of the candidates that you see that come in aren't necessarily qualified to pass along to clients. So.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And then do you guys find it a little more difficult? Because obviously before the pandemic, we would have people come in and do interviews. So are you more of a face-to-face person when you're interviewing? Does it make you feel more confident to send someone along once you've seen them facially, or
it's interesting.
Has that affected you in any way?
So when I was with Gap, we, after the pandemic started, we switched to all over the phone interviews. And at first I thought it was going to be really challenging. But actually what I found is it puts me at ease a lot more. I don't know what it is. Like, I do really well just like conversing back and forth with people. But in an interview setting, when it's somebody like trying to get a job and like me asking them the questions, I don't know what it is, but being in person like makes me feel really nervous. Whereas doing it over the phone just seems like, I don't know, like a little more relaxed.
There's a little more of a barrier for...
Yeah, and I think it also relaxes the candidate too. I feel like you get a more genuine conversation over the phone than like the formality of in person.
Yes.
So
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially with commercial side of candidates. I always felt more comfortable once we went to phones. I felt like it kind of took down them feeling so nervous and having to look presentable. Not that they wouldn't be presentable at work, but when you're in commercial, you're obviously blue collar.
Right.
And a lot of my guys would be coming off of shifts and to look for a different shift or change their career altogether. So when they would come in, I felt like it was very nerve-wracking for them, and they thought it was just going to be you see me and instantly toss me kind of thing. Which obviously a lot of what goes into recruiting is kind of calming the person down.
Right. Well, and I think too, like, it's also doing interviews over the phone, I think is a lot easier for, like, if the candidate isn't a good fit, because there's so many times, not with Provisional, but in past positions that I've worked, where within like the first 10 minutes of you talking to the person, it's very clear that they're not suitable for the role. And then there's kind of this resentment that they came all the way down. Like when I was with Gap, it was they had to come downtown, pay for parking just to go to this interview, and, you know, realizing that it's not a good fit for them. There is a little bit of like resentment on the candidate's part, as far as like, I got myself all dressed up. I came down here all this way, and
I put myself out there.
We ended up wasting each other's time.
And let's talk a little bit about that too, as far as kind of the platforms you use to find candidates. What have been the easiest? How many platforms do you reach out to? Things like that.
So as far as finding candidates for us to reach out to, kind of like as cold calls, I typically use WorkSource and Monster, LinkedIn a little bit for like higher level positions. But WorkSource, definitely, we look for people that have just updated their profiles within the last week. And I'll sift through kind of different keywords of different positions we have open, come up with a pool of candidates to reach out to. And that nets us a few interviews typically. And then we also use recruiting websites like ZipRecruiter and Indeed to post job listings that we're looking for and reaching out to candidates who are directly applying for those positions.
Nice. And that kind of helps them filter, and you, obviously, if they're applying for the job, then it's a little easier. Put them in that category.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to reach out to somebody who has already shown interest in the job.
And what kind of things would you say to someone as far as when you're doing the cold calling or emailing? What kind of things do you do to kind of pull them in to looking at a position?
I am not ashamed. I totally use flattery.
I like it.
I kind of pick a couple things off their resume that really stood out to me, and I just let them know that, hey, I saw this on your resume. It looks like you have a lot of experience in this area, and I just thought of you for this position that we have available. Like,
oh, that's nice.
Would you be interested in setting up an interview? So yeah, I kind of just try to, I don't know, just like boost people's egos a little bit.
I like it. Hey, there is definitely no shame in that. Right? You have to do what you can. And then as far as your position with Provisional and you kind of sticking around, where would you like to see yourself? Would you like to add a different division?
As far as where I see myself at Provisional, one of the things I was really looking for in finding a new company to work for was a place that I wanted to be for a long time. Having spent the last several years of my career in retail, there's been a lot of upheaval. Like I've worked for companies that went bankrupt and I had to do liquidation for them. I worked for companies where my position was eliminated. And so what I was really looking for was someplace with longevity. I don't like looking for new jobs. And ideally, like I would like to stay someplace for years and years. And so the idea of kind of growing with Provisional is absolutely something I'm interested in. I would say as far as adding a division to Provisional, I think of industries that have the biggest need right now. And a lot of those industries are service industries. The service industry obviously has seen like a mass exodus of employees, and my husband works in the service industry. He's a pastry chef.
Oh, nice.
And
I love pastries.
As far as like trying to retain expediters and sous chefs and things like that, it is very difficult. And I think like one of the things I appreciate about Provisional is they're very honest with their clients about what it's going to take to retain talent. And I think if more service industries were to work with a staffing agency, it might give them a better understanding of what it takes to retain talent.
For sure.
So yeah, I would say that's kind of like the biggest need that I see as far as like different industries right now. Not one that I would like, it's not like a personal passion of mine or anything, but as, you know, as far as, well, I mean, I guess it's something I have a ton of experience in, you know, because that's my background. But yeah, it's definitely a huge need right now. And I know like with my husband's workplace, they've been talking about looking for a staffing agency instead of trying to handle it all on their own.
That can be hard too. I know a lot of people's positions, I mean, clients that I used to talk to, obviously with people leaving work, going on unemployment and kind of taking a different road or route, a lot of those positions end up getting all placed on one person.
Yep.
So not only is that person doing project management, they're also doing the labor side of it now too.
Like this consolidation of roles.
Yes. And I mean, most of them aren't getting a higher pay for it. So that's also the issue that you see. But I do always find it so helpful when a client is open to understanding what needs to change.
Right.
If wage needs to change, which is usually a big thing, $15 an hour doesn't really cut it for most people.
No.
I mean, just everything going up in price immensely.
Cost of living it's no joke.
No, it's definitely a lot different than it was 50 years ago.
Even 10 years ago.
Exactly. Okay, so there's a
up.
lot of different things that you kind of have to ask for from these employers and kind of work with them. So I do agree that you'll probably start to see a shift in the staffing industry, and them working with a lot more different companies and different industries than just a few. Because I think everyone's kind of struggling to add interviewing and making sure you're interviewing the correct person.
Yeah.
And doing it all, you know, by the book and not being inappropriate anyway.
Making sure it's all legal.
Yes. To have someone kind of filter that for you is such a big help.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it kind of takes that pressure off of you, because that can be a huge thing for anyone.
Yeah, and somebody who's actually like sifting through candidates to find the best fit, to find that quality for you that you might not necessarily have the time to scout out yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. So, and you did really well. So 2 cups of coffee is good. If I gone for a third, we probably would be really crazy.
Yeah. I would have
and I told us not to touch the table, and I touched the table like multiple times. So I also need to work on that. I just don't know what to do with my hands.
I wonder if you could put like some kind of cover
that
would
be
soften
something.
the noise.
That's what I'm thinking. I think Marty can add some sort of sound where I can find
Sound
something.
barrier.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next time. Or we won't see you. You'll hear us.